Be a crypt keeper. All right, guys. Oh, St. Charles, just right up the block. Stony Brook, Long Island. Guys, I know I can sit here and listen to the crypt keepers all the time. They're growing on you, but how can I do that when I got a legend already? I've stated that Karl Hamburger is a legend. Karl, how are you doing, buddy?
That's the correct word when describing me, a legend. I've been podcasting for multiple years. I'm obviously a legend
No,
at
seriously,
this
Karl.
point.
Karl, you did something. Look, somebody is a legend when you do something that no one else did. And that's what you did when you came up with this. I want to spend the time here, kind of getting like I know you, you're my friend, and I'm a big fan of yours and everything like that. But I want to know, were you always someone who would pick shit apart? Like, I gotta know, like, if your wife, not saying that she does all the cooking, I'm sure you do too, cooking, or if she's wearing something and she asks you, do you give that honest opinion everywhere you go?
It's a good question. No one's ever asked me that before.
I
Yeah,
wanna
this
know.
this this is not anything new for me. So, who are these podcasts that show? We make fun of other people's podcasts, we review them, and I get pretty analytical about it. I really dig into details, and I've been told by people in the business, people who are from radio or in radio, that I do a pretty good job of it. So I appreciate that.
No
I
doubt.
can remember I can remember a time that I was dating my now wife. We were dating at the time, and we were hanging out at her house, and she had her brother over and her brother's girlfriend. It might have been the four of us, maybe there were six of us. We're all sitting around the table and we're playing cards or something, and they have some band playing. They're listening to some CD. It goes back far enough. People listen to CDs still.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah.
And whatever the band was, I remember what it was, but I hated that band, and I was just picking it apart. And I'm explaining why this song sucks and why that riff sucks and why they put a bridge there. All the things that I normally do. And my brother, my girlfriend's brother's girlfriend,
Okay.
who's now my sister-in-law, she uh, after a while gets up, turns it off, ejects the CD. She's like, "Fine, we have to listen to this." I go, "Oh no, I'm sorry. This is what I do." I was enjoying making fun of this music. I didn't say for once I didn't want it on. I just thought it sucks, and I wanted to explain to you why it sucks. That was the whole point of it.
I got you, man, and you certainly have a knack for it. I mean,
Thank you.
there are people, like, I would love to take you to one of those places like they have, I guess in some of the bars or amusement park, whatever. But they have this where you put up a picture and they say, "Find what's wrong with this." And have you ever seen something like this where,
Sure.
in different pictures, someone's wearing one earring or has one nostril or something like that? Something like that. I mean, that would be your idiot savant think, because everyone has one. Like, like I was saying, I can tell you any date that from certain bands when an album came out, but I'm
Yeah.
sure you have that spatial intelligence where
Well,
you
I'll
can
tell
find
you
it out.
another interesting anecdote since you brought that up. I'm a huge fan of Megatouch. You familiar with Megatouch at all?
No, what's that?
Those are the touchscreen games used to have be in all the bars. And now everyone has touch screens in their pockets, so they don't care about it. So it's not really
Yeah.
around anymore. But you'd go there and you'd play these games, and a lot of them were like the nude girls, and you had to pick out the differences. Like they're both the
Yes,
same pictures, and there's five things you
that's
got
what
to
I was talking
find.
about. Yeah, yeah. I didn't do a
Yes,
good job, but that's what I meant.
right. So like Naked Photo Hunters, what it was called. So when I worked for ebombsworld.com, remember
Get out of you work
ebombsworld.com?
for them?
Yes. Yeah, I
Dude,
worked there.
that was the original. Oh my god.
I
Are you
know.
serious? I
I
didn't know
know.
that about you.
Yeah, so when I worked there, one of the things I did was I photoshopped that exact game for eBombs World. I would find an interesting photo, cute girls or whatever. It wasn't like pornography, but cute girls, and then I would make five differences through Photoshop, and then people had to go in and find the differences. So
Dude,
yeah, that's always been something I've been
that's
into. Not that I'm
amazing.
good at it, but
No, I mean,
funny you
dude,
bring that
I
up.
remember that. Like, you would put, like, there would be the picture up of the cute girl, and maybe she had one nipple ring or something like that,
Yep.
and that was a great bar game, man. And for you to tell me that you were a part of E-Baum's world, which,
Yeah.
to my knowledge, is the first to do it as far as putting up the risque, the offensive, whatever it may be. I mean, they put up some real guy shitting in his pants.
Yeah, yeah. Evo's World was like where you went to find viral videos before viral videos were kind of a thing.
Okay.
Like I can remember going to eBomb's World back when you would click the video and it didn't play in the browser. You had to like download the player and then play the video from the player. Like this is going back a long ways.
Yep.
And so I was a fan of eBomb's World before I even knew that it was in my hometown of Rochester. That's where
Oh my god.
eBomb is from. And then I ended up meeting him through some work connection thing. And then a couple months later, he offered me a job. I'm like, yes, let's go. That's awesome. And I got my
Wow.
dream job working for a comedy website where we had
Dude.
we had games and videos and just all sorts of nonsense. And it was everything you'd think it would be. Early 2000s internet company. You know, when people think about like what that's like, all the money pouring in and everything. Like we had the entire basement was just an arcade. And I kid you not, every lunch break, me and my buddy Mikey P just played darts. I got
It's
really good at darts because that's all we would do is just go downstairs, play darts, play video games,
like
we'd
today's Twitter.
shuffleboard. Yeah, it was really fantastic. It was a dream job,
Carl, I
and
gotta tell
yeah, it
you,
was fun.
yeah, I gotta tell you, man. I used to do this thing, and I was so bitter and angry for the longest time because we're talking about like early 2000s, like after I left Howard. I did this show. It was primetime uncensored up in Chatsworth, California, which is porn capital of the world. And those were the only guests that we could get. So what I did was we had a live show, and I would go to eBaum's World and pick the best videos
Oh,
and
no
put it
kidding.
on there. And how would you not watch that stuff? Okay, here's someone getting tased. We'll be right back with the porn girls. Here's a guy shitting in his pants and people laughing at him. E-Bombs World was where I got everything from. And who knew that you worked for it, man? How cool is
Isn't
that?
that funny? Like we're a certain generation
Yeah.
where if you say E-Bombs World, like our generation goes, "Oh yeah, of course, E-Bombs World."
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you're too old or too young, you have no idea what
Right.
E-Bombs World was. But it was huge for I don't know 6, 7, 8 years maybe. Like that was the place to go. And
Yeah.
even if you were just like using search engines and just looking for stuff, you'd always end up on E-Bombs World. It had
And I
everything on
yeah,
there.
I had a question for you on that because there was a time where I wasn't into that stuff, but there was certainly an audience for it. Where on eBaum's World they had a category with all the death and gore and shit like that. Because this is when the internet was just coming about. And by the way, I just want to announce what chat my ass was that I was doing that show before the ridiculousness show that
Right.
came out. So that's all it was, right? It was just playing clips of shit on
Yeah.
eBay World.
I have a story for you real quick.
Please.
Sorry to cut you off.
No, that
So
was it.
speaking of ridiculousness, so E-Bombs World actually had a pilot that went on the USA Network, and it was going to be a half-hour TV show that ran, I think, right before WWE on Monday nights, and we actually had Jericho was one of the hosts of the show. So we had Jericho and this other guy, and they would introduce these videos and viral clips, and it was called E-Bombs World, and the pilot was amazing. And I'm hypercritical of things like that, as you know, as we talked
Yeah,
about.
of course.
And I remember watching the pilot going, this is a great show. This
Right.
is really gonna
Who would not
this is
watch
gonna
that?
take off. And it was right at that time that USA Network decided they were gonna totally switch formats. They didn't want to be like a network for guys anymore. They wanted to incorporate more women's programming and stuff. So it didn't get picked up. And it's really a shame because that would have been huge for us
Oh,
to have the TV show. Because I remember Patrice O'Neill was on that show on VH1 that was also similar to that. I'm drawing a blank
really?
on what that was called. But there were a few shows that like they TV recognized like, oh, people are just like going on the internet and watching these videos. We can just bring it to them on TV.
Right, right.
And we eBounce was one of the first ones that we just didn't get picked up, unfortunately.
That's a shame because you guys supplied without you guys, none of those shows would have happened, you know?
Maybe I don't know. There were other competitors out there that were similar to eBounds World, but we just for some reason
I
eBounds
don't
World took
remember them
off.
though, buddy. So I'm
Yeah.
gonna give credit where it's due. But you know what? I mean, that makes sense because that was groundbreaking at the time. And what you did by taking all these because everyone and their mother, there was a time where I believe that you couldn't even get microphones because everyone was going to do some sort of podcast.
Yeah.
So you took that. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you get it all the time. But I really want to know, um, here you are, you got a successful you had like a media company, you're
Mhm.
a successful guy, you're putting food on the table, you're, providing for your family. What makes you say, "Hey, I wanna go in this direction and leave the steady job that's making it's very lucrative,
Yeah.
but I wanna do this?"
Yeah, I was a partner at a digital marketing agency here in Rochester, and, so I was one of the owners of the company. We did very well. We made the Rochester Top 100 fastest growing companies. The first 3 years, we were eligible for it. It was a multi-million dollar company,
Wow.
yada, yada, yada. Very successful, and it was very difficult because I was planning on my partners were older than me. I was planning on buying them out and taking over the company. That was the plan, and then the pandemic hit.
Okay.
And the pandemic, it didn't crush our business. We still, I mean, it changed things for sure. We had clients that just went completely silent, like, ah, no. Like one of our clients is my good buddy who owns tents and events company here in Rochester. So his whole job was setting up tents for weddings and festivals and
Oh,
all sorts of
geez.
things. It's like that's not even legal anymore. Like, oh, okay, well, what are you gonna do? So like
Mhm.
shit like that, you're like, okay, well, there's nothing going on. But anyway, it changed the way we worked, and we all were working from home. And I started getting real frustrated and real annoyed with working from my house every day, going on Zoom calls all day long. It just wasn't the same. I'm a guy who walks around the office and talks to people and shares stories and hangs out. And now it's just sitting in my house all day, staring at the screen. My partners were annoying the hell out of me. So I finally said, you know what? I'm having some success with the podcast. At that point, I wasn't making a living from it, but I had some success. And I told myself, all right, I'm going to leave this company and I'm going to give 5 months to see if I can make the podcast work. Because I was working way more than 40 hours a week doing digital marketing. So I'm like, if I can put that time and energy into the podcast, can I make this my successful thing? And
Gotcha.
thankfully that worked out. And I definitely have done freelance digital marketing stuff since then, but now I'm completely out of that game and I'm just focused solely on podcasting. And that's now my main line of work. So
Yeah.
I hate the pandemic. I hate the lockdowns. I was very mad at Cuomo, the way all this went down, but it actually worked out because I don't know that I would have taken that leap if that had not happened.
I got you. I got you. And you know, you're a bright guy, and um, I'm sure this might be a silly question, but were you like a good student? Could you retain knowledge? Were you an
You're
effective student?
you're asking me questions I don't think anyone's ever asked me before. I
Well,
was
I'm a
a
fucking weirdo.
I was a straight A student. I
I
had
would have
per
said that.
I had perfect attendance in high school. I I had 6 college credits for calculus going into college
I knew it.
that I got from high school.
I know. I know.
Very good at math, very good SAT scores. I went to a shitty college that I just didn't really care that much, and I was working. I
You
worked in
didn't
a
go to Brockport,
restaurant.
did you?
I went to Brockport. Very
Get the fuck
good.
out of here. Are you
Are you
serious?
Yeah, I
I'm
went
not
to
joking.
SUNY Brockport.
My first love, with your puppy dog love. She was a girl in
Yeah,
high school. She went up to play soccer at Brockport. That's
that's insane.
wow. And you went there.
That's where
That's
I
not a
went to
good
college for
school.
4 years.
Not a good school, Carl.
It's not a great school. No, it's not good at all.
It's like Western
And
Kentucky.
Well, but it's a SUNY school. It was super inexpensive. I never had college loans. I worked the whole time that I went to school. I worked in a restaurant. I was a cook, so I was able to pay for my books and my tuition and everything as I
Yep,
went.
yep.
My parents helped me out too, which was great. So yeah, I just didn't care that much. And to be honest with you, I didn't even know what I was going to school for. I had a friend who I went to high school with who also went to college with me. And I remember it was like our second year, our sophomore year, and I go, what are we going to major in? She goes, I'm going to do marketing. I go, okay, I'll do that. Like literally, I'm like, I want to take classes with you. We'll just take classes together. I'll just do whatever you're doing. So
Right.
that's why I chose marketing because she was doing it. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's just do that. So I mean, I really didn't care about business marketing or any of that stuff. I probably could have applied myself and been more successful at that sort of thing. But
But what were you interested in back then? Do you remember?
well, I
Besides
was,
this girl, obviously.
yeah, no, honestly, I'm a guitar player,
Yeah, I
and
know you got a band.
back then I was in a punk band, and I thought that I was going to be the next NoFX. And I thought we were going to get on a label and we were going to tour around. So I'm like, you know what? I'll go to college just in case. That was kind of like my attitude
That's
towards
your
it. Like,
backup.
all
Okay.
right, I'll get a degree in case this rock band thing doesn't work
Yeah, I
out.
know
Of
my
course it
parents
didn't.
yelling at me. Okay, fine.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I'm like, all right, I'll go to school and I'll get a degree or whatever it is. But yeah, I really thought that I was going to be a successful punk rocker. And now what's funny about that is I still play in bands and I play in this one
Isotopes,
band.
right?
I'm in the Isotopes. Yep, the isotopes.com is my instrumental rock band. I'm also in a band called Buzzmeyers. And it's me and my buddy, Eddie Nebula. We've been playing in bands together for a couple decades. But it's funny because recently he was talking about shopping our stuff out to labels and going on tour, all the things I dreamed of when I was younger. And I'm like, oh, I wouldn't do that. I have to be home podcasting. There's
Right.
no way you could get me out on the road touring with a band right now. Like that's
Wow.
not what I want to do at all in my life.
So at Brockport, were you playing, like, local gigs around there during
Yeah.
that time? Yeah?
Oh yeah. I
So
mean, Brockport's close to Rochester.
yeah,
So we were playing at all the city venues and playing shows all the time.
I gotcha. And, one thing that I had to, compliment you on, another thing was I didn't know how you were gonna be able to bring what you do to the live arena. I believe your first show was in, like, Nashville or something like that, where you were
Chicago.
oh, Chicago. You were doing a live, who are these podcasts, and I was nervous for you because I like you, and
Thank
I didn't understand how it's not stand-up comedy, you gotta be invested in it, and you gotta sit and you kinda gotta, relax with it and kind of be you got to understand and you have to pay full attention. It's not like someone telling you a joke and you laugh.
right.
Were you nervous going into it? I mean, what were your thoughts going into your first gig? I thought it was Nashville, but you say now it's Chicago.
Yeah, we did Chicago as our first show, Nashville was our second. And it's interesting, Casey. I remember you and I had a conversation about this that was kind of funny because I don't even think this way. But we came to New York and you were going to come to the show. And I think we were texting that day or the day before or something. And you're like, so what are you going to do? And I go, I don't know yet. I haven't figured out yet. You're like, what? You're
Yeah.
insane. I'm like, no, this is how I operate. Like I haven't started prepping for my show tomorrow, which I do at 2 p.m. on Saturdays. I'll do that when I get up tomorrow is when I'll start preparing for that. I like to do things so that they're fresh. And
Spontaneous.
I just watched these. I just wrote these notes down. It's all fresh in my head and I can sit down and I can hit the ground running. I can't like a lot of people who come on my show and co-host, they want to start prepping 2 weeks in advance. And I'm like, oh, you're
You're
gonna
gonna
forget
lose it.
why you even pulled the clip or whatever.
Right, right.
But anyway, so Chicago, I'm thinking back. I don't think there were nerves there because of my experience playing live so often in
In advance.
bands.
Okay.
So I'm used to being on stage. I'm used to people looking at me, and I knew that the show was popular enough. Well, that's the other thing too. A lot of times when you're playing in bands, you're opening for another band or you're playing with a bunch of other bands and things. You have to win the audience over. They
Okay.
don't know your music. They don't care about you. You got to get up there and give them a reason to like you. With
Mhm.
Who Are These Podcasts Live, it's a lot more comfortable because people are flying in from all over the country to watch your show. They're already fans. They
They're
want
already
to
on your
enjoy it.
team.
Yeah. And I literally had a quick little pep talk backstage because a lot of the guys on the show are just friends of mine. They're not
Yeah,
professional podcasters.
right.
So I literally had a pep talk with all of them. I'm like, bye, guys, just so you know, everyone out there is rooting for you. They all love you. We're going to go out there. We're going to crush it. Because I didn't know if they were nervous or they had nerves or whatever, but I just wanted to let them know, like, this is the easiest thing to go into.
Mhm.
It's like Billy Joel at MSG. Like, there's no hecklers there.
Right.
No one's going, this song sucks. Boo. Like, everyone's there to be like, this is going to be amazing. And they want to be right. And they are. So
Mhm.
I didn't have a lot of nerves. And fortunately, that first show I did in Chicago went off without a hitch. The second show I did in Nashville, we started to incorporate a video element, which I had never done live before. That worked out pretty well. I had a little bit of a technical issue at first, and then it rolled fine. And then it wasn't until Detroit. Well, Detroit was great. I just had an issue recording the shows. People were annoyed with how the recording came out. And then New York, wow, my computer failed me.
Oh, dude, I remember I was there and I'm like, I sent you a text. I didn't want to bother you, but I'm like, can I get your computer? Can I get your flash drive? What do you need, man? And
Yeah.
but how did you when you faced with a problem like that? Well, tell the audience what happened there. Let me stop interrupting you.
All right. So we get there. Now we're in Manhattan. I have Anthony Cumia on my show. I have Brian Johnson, E-Rock, of course, all my buddies who are on the show regularly. So we got a big crew, but a lot of people that I look up to and I'm a huge fan of on the show. And so my job is to run the show. So
Mhm.
we get there. We do sound check. I'm having some technical things, but that's not working. This isn't working. But then we get everything working great, and everything's all right. Cool. We're ready to hit the ground running. Now we have a little meet and greet. We're meeting the fans. Then we go back to the green
You're in a
room. We get
beautiful,
some
classy
food.
place. That place is awesome. You got a
Yeah,
packed crowd. I mean,
yeah,
it's really
it's
classy,
nice.
and I mean, it looks awesome when you get in there.
It's a really nice place. City Winery. Very nice. Oh, too nice for us, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was
It's in Chelsea. That whole area of Manhattan, honestly, if I could do it again, I would have gone to, I don't know, the Stand or something, because that place was too nice for us. And
it's
every place
gorgeous.
around there was just like these high-end clubs and lines out the door. And I'm like, oh, this isn't my scene at all. But anyway, so we get everything working. Everything's working great. Great. We go back in the green room. We have dinner. We're all chatting back there backstage. Showtime. I get up, I'm like, hey, where are these podcasts? I start hitting things. We're hitting the intros. And then all of a sudden, everything stops working. I'm like, oh.
Mm.
Oh, and this is the worst part. So it starts working again. So I bring up Anthony and Missy and Vinny, or I think it was Trucker Andy came up. So we're all up there, producer Chris, we're all up there like panel style. I got my computer, we got the video screen behind us, about to start showing Stuttering John clips, and everything dies again. I'm like, no, what the fuck? So fortunately, we had worked out, and you were there, so you remember
Yeah.
this. We had worked out this thing called the Dabble Battle. We were going to have people come up and do their Stuttering John impressions.
Mhm.
And Missy B took this concept and ran with it. She was back in the green room writing sentences for the
Thank
Stuttering
God.
John impressionists to say
God.
that were hilarious. So people would come up, they'd get their note card, and they'd read the
Crowd
Stuttering
loved
John
it.
impression.
Uh,
Crowd loved it. So then we'd like audience vote, and we were going round by round. This person advances, this person doesn't. So it was like turning into this thing. Now I wasn't
are you
involved in that
paying
because I'm
attention because you're on your
no,
computer? You couldn't even you tuned it out.
I'm troubleshooting.
Gotcha.
I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to get this freaking thing to run the show for me. So thankfully that killed enough time because I felt so bad. I bring up Anthony and Missy, and then I'm like, hey, can you guys fill 40
Well,
minutes?
they
Because
understand. They understand that, you know.
no, it was fine. So then I got it working again, and then it wasn't working. So I'm like, all right, we got to do something here. Producer Chris had his computer. I go, give me your computer. I loaded all my clips, all my video clips, everything I needed onto a thumb drive, popped into his computer, loaded it. I had to download software. I'm
Oh,
doing all this stuff on stage on the fly. You're sitting there probably
wow.
feeling it for me. And so I pull it all up. I'm like, all right, we're ready to go. And we start the show. Everything I have is on my computer. So I got all my notes, all my
Right.
drops, everything. And then producer Chris plays drops off his computer. So now he can't do anything. And I'm looking at my notes on my phone now because I don't have my computer anymore and I'm using his computer. So long story short, I think you'll agree with me. I never lost my cool.
Never.
And
You're a
someone
pro.
was actually
You're a
asking me,
professional.
someone was asking me about that today about, because we just did a live show in Philly last weekend. And for some dumb reason, I was in charge of all the tech. So we get there early, producer Chris and me, and we get there and we set up everything, the video screen, the video monitors, the cameras. We're figuring out the system so that we can hear ourselves in headphones, but we also have wedge monitors on the stage. If you're not wearing headphones, you'll be able to hear stuff. We got all this stuff all figured out. And I'm really happy it all went
Ah,
off without a hitch. I got a DI box for my computer, a USB DI box. It's a lifesaver. Anyway,
nice.
so we got everything working and everything's working great. And a guy was texting me today and he's just like, you must be running around like a chick with his head cut off.
Yeah, yeah.
I go, not actually, no. I
No,
am
the worst has
I
already
am
happened to me.
so
I've been
calm.
through this before.
Yeah, I'm like, I've gone through being in bands and stuff. I've gone through every bad thing that could possibly happen. And the more south something goes, the calmer I get for some reason, thankfully. I
Yeah,
don't
it's
start yelling at people or freaking out. Like
well,
it's
no,
gonna
you
we're gonna
handled
be
it
fine.
like a pro, Carl, I guess, I mean, this is a big commercial for Apple, because, uh, at that time, could you think, if you were a PC guy that you wouldn't be able to pull it together as fast because that Apple is, it works with other Apple very, very fast. That's just what I hear. People are Apple.
No, that's true. That's definitely true. Everything syncs very easily.
Yeah,
That's why I had my notes on my phone because I have my
right.
notes app that I typed on my computer, but then it just all syncs very easily. And I don't know. I've gone back and forth between PC and Mac, and I don't know. I have friends who swear by PCs, like Vinny Paulino, my co-host on the Creep Off, just got a brand new PC that he had built from scratch, and it's got all the bells and whistles and specs and everything. And there's definitely Macs are definitely more expensive for kind of no reason, but
Right.
they work for me. I it's all I use now is just Mac everything.
So how does your live shows with doing the podcast live compared to your days touring as a musician? Or are you still doing tours as a musician? Are you throwing some in there too? Because I know that's
Yeah.
something that you're very passionate about.
Yeah, we play shows all the time. If you go to theisotopes.com, you can see our tour dates on there. I shouldn't say tour dates. Like we play shows regionally,
Okay.
a lot of local shows, and then we'll travel a few hours here and there. We did get offered to play this place, Otto's Shrunken Head in Manhattan. You ever heard of that
I
place?
haven't heard of that. Where is it?
It's in Manhattan. It's a cool place. I played there a couple times before in the past. It's just too small a room,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, it's going to be a lot of work. But the big difference between the band and the podcast is that the podcast is just way more successful than the bands have ever been. So the bands do well. We bring out
What about
a
the
good
fans,
local crowd.
Carl? The
What's that?
fans, are they more rabid, for the podcast, or the people that are into your music, are they equally as passionate and into it? Or I would think it
It's
would be a toss up.
interesting. It's very different because when we play shows, and the Isotopes are actually very popular. We've been around for over 20 years. We play pretty big shows. A lot of people come out to our shows. We have a lot of fans in the area, and it's great. They're into it. We have dancing girls. We have go-go dancers on stage. There's a light show. There's a stage effects. Like it's a whole thing. It's a
Okay.
performance, and
Uh-huh.
people get into it, and it's very exciting. The difference is though, Casey,
Yeah.
is with the podcast fans, they fly in from literally other countries. The show we just did in
Wow.
Philly, there was a girl there from the UK. There's a bunch of guys from Canada who came down to the show. People coming from Colorado and LA and Minnesota. Everyone I'm talking to, like, traveled all this way. They're willing to pay money for a VIP meet and greet. Or we're signing posters. We're taking photos. None of that stuff happens at an Isotope show. Like, there's maybe a couple people who are like want to talk to me before or after the show or something, but no one wants me to sign a poster or do a selfie with them. It's
Right,
very
right.
different.
Wow, that's so cool. Did you know, when you first started doing this, did you know that you were onto something, or was there a time where it just kinda just clicked and you say, "Wait a minute, this has legs. This thing's gonna go."
That's another good question, Casey. Have you worked with people who are good at interviewing before?
I
Did you learn
I
something?
watched them for a little while. I don't people say I can't speak, but I have trouble with
So
it.
so this is what happened. This is crazy. I started doing the podcast with my buddy Kevin, who moved across the country. So this was our excuse to get together for an hour every week and record a show together and make each other laugh. And it didn't really get any traction and then he quit the show, and then I started doing it with other friends, and it didn't really get any traction for the first couple of years. And I can remember vividly thinking, I'm spending every Saturday making this podcast. I'm doing all the work to obviously the prep, but then post-production and uploading and promoting and all this stuff. It's like, that's my weekend. And now I'm spending all this time. And I started thinking, maybe it's time to phase this out. It
Oh,
was
wow.
fun. It's fun while it lasted, but whatever. And that
Okay.
was right around the time that we first reviewed OP Radio, because OP had finally just went into podcasting.
One
So we
one of
review
everyone's favorite, I'm sure.
So episode 107 of Who Are These Podcasts is what really broke it for us. We reviewed OP Radio, and I just put out like a normal episode. It was Memorial Day weekend, I remember. Like, whatever, no big deal. Someone grabbed the audio from that podcast and made a YouTube video out of it, and it got 70,000 views the first
Oh my
weekend.
god, really?
I know. I was like, whoa, what's going on right now? And it was such in my world, in my dumb world, it was such a phenomenon that, like, literally Jim and Sam were talking about it on their show on Sirius XM, and then Anthony Cumia was talking about it on his show, and there was like all this buzz going on. Like Chip Chipperson was making references to it, and there's all like
I think
everyone who I
Rogan was
want.
even talking about you.
I don't know about Rogan.
I believe he
I don't
did.
know. Maybe that'd be cool.
You
Find the
know, I
clip.
believe he did, Carl. I'll look. He's a great guy too, by the
I
way.
know he's aware of the Dabbleverse because he talks to Anthony about it. So
Oh, yeah?
he's aware of the Stuttering John phenomenon. So what was crazy is after I did that episode, all of a sudden I'm getting all these new listeners and people reaching out, and I'm getting notes from people who used to work with Opie. Like people used to produce the Opie and Anthony show in the late 90s, early 2000s, people who were interns there, and they're all going, "You are spot on." And that was the craziest thing is Anthony goes on his show and he's talking about, and he goes, this guy must have been in the room with us. He
Right.
knows Opie better than anyone, better than I do. He was very complimentary. He's like, I can't believe his insights on this are all
Mhm.
spot on. And so it was like a month or two after that that I was invited to go on Anthony's show and head down to New York. And yeah, that's when all of a sudden there was momentum and we were building something and things were happening. But right before that, I swear to God, Casey, I'm like,
You were
yeah,
about to
I'm
wow.
probably done with this. That's enough.
You know what, man? That's such a cool story. Because you hear about musicians where they say, "Well, I don't know if I should be doing this or whatever,"
Mhm.
and then you find out that turn out to be like I think there's a story about Stevie Nicks who before she wrote what's that her most favorite popular song, Mountainside, not Mountainside. Well, whatever it was, her most famous song. She was about to hang it up. So I'm not comparing you to Stevie Nicks because
I know, I'm much more talented than she is, obviously. We
hey,
can all agree on that.
hey, Carl, how about when you're hitting your stride and you're doing this? Ever been a podcast or a show that you're going to review, and for some reason you don't think maybe they can't take the joke, they might be unstable, they might try and do something to you and or your family. Have you ever left a podcast alone that you were gonna review? Because you can
No,
be
but
pretty
no, I know. No, I've never done that. I've never been like, "Nah, I shouldn't talk about these people." I've always gone after everyone. But, it's funny you say that because there's one I should have had second thoughts about. There's a show called The Vanished. This woman, Marissa Jones, and she hosts this show where, she documents missing people, and she talks to, like, their relatives and things like that, and she acts like she's trying to help, but she's in it for herself, obviously.
yeah,
A
she's
lot of these true
making
crime
it
people.
sensational and all that.
Yeah, exactly. So I did a show about The Vanished, and she has a big following. And so she was very upset with me and decided to get all of her Facebook and Twitter followers to try to get me fired from my job. And it
Oh,
was crazy, Casey, because I was going to Vegas for a wedding. And so when all of this started, I was in the air. I had no idea what was going on. We land on the tarmac. I pull out my phone. I get back on the internet, and I'm sitting next to my wife. We're out there for vacation. We're going to a wedding, and I see this shitstorm happening. I'm like, oh, this is not good. They're
uh-oh.
going after my business, my business partners, our clients. They're all just like tweeting, and they're getting on LinkedIn, and they're emailing, and they're doing everything they can to tell them I'm a horrible person and that I don't deserve to live and all these things that people do when they it's funny how people are like very quick to like, I'll just ruin this guy's life right now. Like,
Oh, yeah, but
huh?
it's alright, and then
Yeah.
tomorrow's Tuesday, it's fine.
Yeah, hey, right. And then Seinfeld reruns tomorrow. Like, what, dude? What is wrong with you? Why are you trying to
Right.
ruin someone's life? So anyway, long story short, if I didn't own a business, if I wasn't a partner, I definitely would have lost my job. And I don't know what would have happened after that. But fortunately, I'm one of the owners. So I remember talking to my business partner on the phone in Vegas, and he goes, and he's getting all this shit from all these people. And he goes, Carl, maybe you should pull the episode down. They seem like they're upset. And I was like, no way in hell. And as soon as he said that, I go, yeah, that's fine. I'll just
Right,
take it down. So I
right.
went immediately up to my hotel room, got on my computer, deleted that episode. I'm like, all right, you guys win. I've taken down The Vanished. And what's funny about that, Casey, is that led to a whole business model for me where I said, people were like, oh shit, I want to hear this episode everyone's talking about. I'm like, yeah, it's gone. Sorry. But if you buy some merchandise, shoot me a photo of your t-shirt or whatever you buy, and I'll send you a link to the show. And then
Clever.
it turned into our Patreon. I'm like, if you sign up for Patreon, you'll get access to episode 88, The Vanish, the one we had to take down,
Wow.
which, by the way, is still available if you sign up for our Patreon. So it's kind of funny how it started as like a thing that was like she was trying to ruin my life, and then it turned into a thing where it's like she actually created a business model for me and
Yeah,
helped
she
me
helped you.
launch the
Yeah.
podcast.
I wish that happens to everyone who is judged on, someone's preconceived, thoughts, or they've been wronged in their life. It's about them.
Yeah.
I wish good things happen to. Anyway, how do you pick those shows that you do? People send in, hey, you should check this one out, or how do you do it?
Yeah, I have a document that's I think 200 pages right now with all the suggestions people send in to me. And so they'll send them through our Discord, they'll email me, they'll tweet me, all the different ways you can reach out to me, and they'll say you got to listen to this show for this reason or that reason. Some people are really lazy about it. They're like, "Oh, check out this show," and I'm like, "Why?" I don't have that
Give me
much
a
time.
main
I just
reason.
listen
Yeah.
to every fucking podcast they're on. But
Right.
sometimes people will write very compelling arguments, like, "Carl, you got to listen to this show. The premise is this, the hosts are that," and I'll go in and I'll listen to 4 or 5 minutes and go, "Okay, yep, this sounds like a winner," and
Hmm.
then I'll pick that. The other way I do it is whenever I have guest hosts on who have their own shows and they're coming on to promote their own shows, like Casey and I have done some episodes
Yeah.
together before.
Yeah, that was fun. We did some
Oh,
fun stuff.
it's a blast. I'll always ask them, is there anything you want to talk about? Because I want them to be comfortable. I don't
Right.
want them to come in and especially, as soon as I started getting guests on like Shuli Egar, like Jim Florentine, like these guys who are no other comedians and are part of that scene, that's when I started saying, all right, who's off limits? What do you want to talk about? What do you not want to talk about? And I
Uh-huh.
remember Jim Florentine, very quickly just said, I don't want to make fun of another comedian's podcast. I'm like, I get it. Yeah, why would you? Like
Yeah.
he's got a podcast and he respects other comedians. He's a great guy. So it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense for him
I would
to
bet
start
Norton would
shit.
say the same thing probably.
Oh yeah, Jim Norton. I remember having a conversation with him on the phone before he came on the show about what I wanted to do, and he's like, "I don't want to do that." I was like, "All right,
Right,
I
right.
get it. That's fine. Nope, no problem. No
He's a
worries at
great
all."
dude, right? He's a good dude.
Oh,
Did you
Jim's a great guy.
Yeah, big
He's a
fan.
sweetheart.
Yeah,
I'm a
great,
big fan of his
really
too.
good guy.
But so a lot of times what I'll do is if I'm having these guys on the show, like I just had this guy Kaya Orson, who's from the official podcast. He was just on this past week. Or Christian Blatt, who used to produce the Dennis Miller show, or any number of people. When I ask them to do the show, I'll say, is there anything what podcast do you want to review? Do you have one on your radar, on your sites? And like guys like Kaya are great with that. Kaya will just shoot me a note out of nowhere and just be like, holy crap, have you seen this thing? And I'm like, no, that sounds terrible.
And you
When do you
trust
want to
his
come on?
judgment? You
Yeah,
trust his judgment saying,
yeah,
"Okay,
yeah,
let's do it."
yeah.
Right.
He always nails it. We just did a show. The most recent episode is this show where this woman turns guys into sissies.
That's
That's like her whole thing.
I would love that.
It's called the Sissy Whisperer. And so she interviews these guys who have to wear like these chastity belt things. So you put on this thing so you can't get an erection. And then you give the key to like your dom or whatever. But it's worse than that, Casey, because not only are you not allowed to have an erection, they call it Locktober. So for all of October, you can't get an erection because you're locked up in this thing. I just
Jesus.
got like this little like pee hole or something. Anyway, but not only that though, it also like shrinks your penis over time. Like
That's
and
on
she
the road
was
to being a sissy, I guess. I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, she's explaining this thing. It's like, don't you want to be a sissy? I'm like, no,
No.
this sounds atrocious. This is terrible. That's the kind of stuff Kaya finds because I would never find that sort of thing. And he sends me that. I'm just like, yeah, let's definitely talk about this. This is insane.
Nice. So is that dude Kaya? Is he in the mix now? By the way, when are your shows? Let people know that, please.
I record the shows live every Saturday at 2 and every Wednesday, usually at 5. Wednesdays, I'm a little more flexible based on the schedule of my co-host, but usually it's 5 o'clock on Wednesdays.
Okay.
And what we do is if you're in our Discord server, you can listen
I'm
live.
sorry I think that
Mhm.
we automatically think everyone knows everything, and I don't. What is a Discord?
Yeah, Discord is it's an app that is kind of like a chat room. It was really
Uh-huh.
built around video games to begin with. So people who are all playing video games together would go on Discord, and that'd be where they communicate as they're playing games together and stuff.
And I'm sure there's different topics or whatever that you could go on.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
exactly.
Sorry to the
So a lot of people have their own Discord. They call them Discord servers.
okay.
So that would be like a room or something. So who are these podcasts? You can find the link on whoareThese.com. We have our own Discord server. And what I'll do is I'll broadcast to that. And that was actually originally what I used to bring on guests and things. They would come on Discord and we'd bring them on, but I still broadcast the whole show to that. And you can listen for free. Anyone can go on Saturday and Wednesday, listen to the show. If
Okay.
you want to watch the show, because I also stream it on YouTube, if you want to watch us do it live, that is for people who subscribe to Patreon and Supercast. So
Okay.
anyone who signs up for our Patreon, patreon.com/who are these podcasts, I send out a link and I say, okay, the show's going to happen today at 5:00. And here's a link to it. Come on in and you can watch it live.
Gotcha.
Now, the vast majority of people listen to the show after I edit it and then upload it as the podcast. So
Okay.
it's first and foremost audio show, because I'm a radio guy like you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I like radio. I don't want to. There are shows that I'll sit and watch, but for the most part, I'm multitasking. I'm listening to a show while I'm driving somewhere or shopping or going for a walk or working
Mhm.
out or whatever.
Yeah,
That's when I'm listening to shows. I want to be able to do other things. So I can't have like a screen in front of me. And
gotcha.
I appreciate people like that. And we do have a big video element now where we play video clips and we react to them.
It's a
But
huge element to bring in there, yeah.
that's what everyone's doing. But the show is definitely first and foremost like audio format. People subscribe to it wherever they get podcasts and they find who are these podcasts and just listen to it from there.
Gotcha. Hey, we're getting around, um, uh, so I got one more question for you, and then, I always, wanna give the audience, 10 minutes, with questions, so I'm just gonna hold you for 12 more minutes. But
Awesome.
another awesome thing that you said, and I remember these things, um, how do you feel about there is this isn't like the Tupac and Biggie thing, but there is a LA podcast scene and,
Yeah.
the East Coast. You were so brilliant because on one of your shows, you pointed out this guy, Bert Kreischer, or so the guy
Yep.
takes his shirt off, and you pointed out that he referred to anyone who isn't a comedian as a civilian.
Yeah. Right.
I
Yes.
thought that was brilliant. Another gem that you're able to just pluck out and analyze. But do you feel that there's a different vibe with the LA podcasters? It seems like there's only a few that go on. Let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah. 100%. It's so bizarre to me. The West Coast podcast, like comedy scene, comedy podcasts, is very safe. It's very PC. I don't find it funny at all because
Okay.
you and I, we're stern guys, O and
Yeah.
A. Like we mix it up. We goof on people. It's shocking sometimes, or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
The LA scene is like these guys making silly voices and laughing at each other, and it's so bizarre to me because they get tons of views. They're very popular.
Yeah.
Bert Kreischer is on a bunch of shows, and yeah, Brennan Schaub and these guys,
Yeah.
and it's
But
like,
they don't fight with
what
each
is
other,
this?
right? They don't speak,
No.
they don't want any confrontation. It's kinda they just kinda, it's like what you said. Again, you're right on. It's very safe,
They all
and
do each other's shows too,
yeah,
and it gets so old because I think that we are in an era right now where comedians are overexposed.
okay.
And I know that a lot of people think the more I'm out there, the better. And for up and coming comics, I totally agree. But at a certain point, less is more.
Yeah,
You don't want to be so accessible that everyone's watching you 6 hours a day
right.
on all of these shows. And so a lot of these comics, they're hosting a couple different shows, they're going on their buddy shows every now and again, and they're just constantly out there talking and
They're 2 and
it
3-hour
can't be
shows.
it can't be funny
Right.
that often. It just doesn't happen. So you're
Yeah.
gonna have a lot of downtime and things that you watch. You're just like, hey, I love this comic. Let's see what he's up to. And it's just like, oh, this is just a mundane conversation. But they're not even trying to be a show. That was
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
things. That's one of the things that I very first latched onto when I started doing Who Are These Podcasts? Because I'm a radio nerd, as I've mentioned,
Self-importance.
many times, is that a lot of these people aren't even trying to do a show. They think they can just have a conversation with their friends and it'll be compelling and interesting. And it's like, no, you got to have, in my opinion.
No,
Some
I'm
people
with
can,
you, man. I
yeah,
see so many of them that just in love with themselves so much that they think that if I told you I went and got a coffee at the deli, that's a great story.
yeah, neat. Did you? Was it good? And
Right.
and that's the thing. Like, I came into this thing thinking shows should have segments and bits, and
Well, it's radio
there
and
should be
it's
structure
radio
to it,
structure. Yeah.
right? And it's like Joe Rogan, who I love, I think he's great at this, has definitely ruined it for a lot of people because everyone thinks they can have a compelling conversation for 3 hours, and most people cannot. I will
Right.
tell you, the vast majority of people cannot pull that off. There's
Very
only a
true.
few shows that where they can sit down without any prep and just start shooting the shit, and it's funny and entertaining. There's a few of them out there, but they're few and far
It's
between.
rare. Yeah, it's
It
rare.
is rare.
Now, was it you that, discovered, the alien guy, uh
MSCS Media, Tommy.
yeah, uh, man, w how did that come about? Was that one of your finds?
It was, but I can't take too much credit because Stuttering John was on the show, and this guy paid John. He flew him out to Florida. That's where this guy is. He flew him out to Florida, paid for his hotel and his flight, and actually paid him for the interview. John shows up to his show and gets wasted.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
dude, have some
that's
respect. This guy's
beyond
bringing.
that's beyond drunk, man. That is, and it looks
Yeah,
like he stayed there, because he's wearing a shirt that's too tight for him, and
yeah. He ended up
for the
crashing at
next
his
show.
house.
He
This guy
did
is a
that.
1-year-old kid, and he got a hotel for him and everything. And John got so drunk during the interview, he ended up crashing at this guy's house.
How drunk are you that you can't go back to your hotel?
Grab an Uber. I know exactly. It shouldn't be that hard.
Oh, that's
So
funny.
anyway, it's so funny because we only watched that show because of Stuttering John and that whole element of it. And he's had him on a few times since then. But then we started to realize like this Tommy guy, who's also a Joe Rogan wannabe, like he sets up his studio just like Joe
Yeah,
Rogan.
it's exactly the same, and
Exactly. Yep. He's got his
that
like
guy's gotta
Jamie
have
guy.
yeah, he's gotta have some knowledge in stats or whatever, because if you look at what he's getting, the numbers he's putting up, and then he starts talking about code or something like that, there's no way that guy's getting, like, millions of views, you know what I mean? But, I'm
He's
glad that you found
insane.
the guy, he's great.
He's so dumb. And so we've decided that he must be from outer space because he
Yeah.
does not understand anything that's going on on the Earth. He's dumbfounded by everything anyone talks to him about, and he's obsessed with space aliens.
I
So I'm
love the
pretty
show,
convinced.
Karl, you did with him and the guy that is into space. He's into space, he's an older guy, you did a whole show on it.
Yeah,
Do you know who I'm talking about?
I do. I don't remember the guy's name, but I remember exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
If
yeah,
anybody
it's fascinating.
yeah, I mean, the guy's name is Tommy from what is it?
MSCS Media. And like you said, Casey, one of the things that I was like, yeah, Redbird in the chat. So he says he's the biggest Howard Stern fan, this guy Tommy. That's why he had John on. And
Yeah.
then he calls Jackie the jokester.
Jackie the Jokester and then, crazy what about Crazy Richard?
Yeah. He goes, John, what do you think about Crazy Richard? And John's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I talk about Richard Christie. No one's ever called him Crazy Richard
Crazy
before.
Richard. Oh,
Doesn't
the
make
guy
any
is
sense. It's
that's
so
great.
funny.
Yeah, I mean, you really have a knack for hitting it on the head and for finding talent, and, man, you got it going. Keep doing what you're doing, buddy. Let's go to the
Thanks, buddy.
audience. Let's see
All
what
right.
they say. I don't wanna keep you too long. I know aren't you doing a show or something tonight? What do you got going on, Karl?
Yeah, I'm going on another show. I don't usually do a lot of these interview things, but the Hapitarian show I'm doing at 10 o'clock my time.
Okay, alright, I'll get you out of here soon, but, I
No worries, buddy.
always wanna
Casey,
go.
I love talking to you, man. Don't
Karl, you're
apologize.
the
You're
best,
fine.
man.
You're fine.
Yeah, are you going to the thing in May, at Pottstown? I think it's the 13th. Are you gonna be there?
I will not be there. No, I wasn't invited to that one, but that's fine.
Oh. Oh.
No, that's
I was
okay.
hoping to see you, but alright.
Are you gonna be there?
Um,
That's cool.
let's see, Jay Ryan, Scott Engineer works for him. Okay, Mitch, is, Shuli the leader of the okay, I don't that one just went away. Salvador, by this time next year, what will be the state of MLC verse?
Oh, the Misery Loves Company. Are you following any of
Oh,
that?
I thought that was Tommy's show, the alien guy.
No, that's MSCS Media. It's all very confusing. The Misery Loves Company. I mean, I
Is that
have been
Kevin Brenner, that guy?
Kevin Brennan. Yep,
Okay.
yep, Kevin Brennan. I was just on a show this past Tuesday.
Oh,
I got
yeah?
to go on the show, which is funny because those guys have been talking shit about me for years,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they've
they were
been
just talking
mocking me.
yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they were just, calling me, like, gay for, like, an hour, I got it was very funny. That
Yeah.
that guy's really funny. I don't believe he's on there, and he's just
Yep.
trying to be a good friend. He's squirming because he doesn't, he's trying to defend me, but doesn't want to give away my business. But they made fun of you for years. You're saying, and then you went on. How
Yeah.
was it? What happened? Because it seems to be a funny show.
It was great. Well, here's the thing. I'm a fan of the show. I
Okay.
mean, and that's the thing a lot of people don't understand is I can watch a show that goofs on me and enjoy it because they're funny, because they're
Right.
doing a good
Right. If
job
it's
of
funny,
it.
it's funny.
Exactly. And Kevin Brennan's funny and Bob Levy's funny. And so they had this guy, Chad Zumach, was a third mic for a long time.
Okay.
And Chad Zumach's a guy that we make fun of quite a bit because he sucks at life
Yeah, I've seen that.
and podcasting. So they finally fired Chad Zumach, or he quit, or both, recently. And so they kind of brought me on just to fuck with Chad, that a guy that Chad hates would fill in for him on the show, which
Uh-huh.
I'm happy to play along with that. I thought that was really funny. And I had a blast on that show. I had a really good time.
That's cool. That's cool. Um, there's a, I don't want to get into it, but it's funny how you kind of your past comes back. Like I didn't know it, but I actually fixed his tire about 10 or 12 years ago in L.A. and I never knew it, but he brought it up and he said, "Oh, um,
Chad Zumach?
yeah, I fixed
Okay.
his tire just because he had a flat tire and I didn't know
No
who the guy
shit.
was."
How
But it's
how
yeah,
funny.
in a Ralph's parking lot, and I didn't even remember, but he said that's what I did. So it's funny how something like that happens. But I would do that for anybody. Anyway, that's stupid.
Can
All
I
right, let's
just
go.
say this real quick though,
Yeah, man.
Casey?
Sure.
As a guy who's had a lot of bad luck with tires over the years,
Uh-huh.
how hard is it to change a fucking tire? Is Chad really doesn't know how to do that? He needed help with that. He needed an older boy to help him with that. Come on, man.
I don't
It's
know,
not
man.
hard.
I
It's
don't
not
remember
hard.
it. But
I,
that's just that I would expect nothing less from you to find an angle and to
I'm
ask a
just
question.
saying. I
I'm
don't know
just
any adult man who needs help changing a tire, but okay.
all right, man. Obnoxious John, good guy.
Yeah, I like him. OJ.
Let's see. You fixed Chad said no, Chad's liar. I don't know why he would say that, but anyway, okay. Patrick, Casey Levy, and Perry, the trifecta of Killers of Comedy Tour 2.0. That was a lot of fun. Next week, I got Are You an Ass Eater from way back with Bob Levy. I got all these old clips when I used to have this was a high eight back then, like early 2000s when we would go on tour of Levy eating ass. So that's
Yeah,
going
yeah,
to be a
yeah.
show next week. So that should be fun.
I
Um,
went and saw Bob Levy with Artie Lang in Buffalo
okay.
when they were doing that tour.
Nice.
And it was like a theater. It was a big venue.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, Bob came out. He did his whole eating the blue cheese out of a girl's ass
Yeah.
bit to end his thing. And then Artie Lang comes out. And Casey, you've been a part of these shows before. As a fan, I'm so frustrated because I'm a fan of stand-up and I want to watch Artie set. And everyone around me just wants to yell at Artie. Everyone's
What did
just,
you get out Stern shit?
yeah, just yelling out stern shit.
Yeah.
And and Artie's just like reacting to it rather than going
Right.
through his
Doing his
material. It's just,
fire or whatever,
yeah,
whatever.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. You
I got
just you
it.
just like, "Oh, okay, guys." And hey, I want to tap the people and be like, I'm also a fan of the Howard Stern show. That's why I'm here. How about you shut the fuck up
Right,
so
right.
that
I
we
wanna
can
hear the
watch?
guy's act because he's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, so we can
Did
watch
you
his
ever
show.
get to meet him? Did you get to talk to him? Because he's a fucking
No,
great guy, man.
I've never met Artie Lang, and I would love to.
Yeah,
And I'm
awesome
always
guy.
rooting for him because he what he brought to the Stern show, and I don't know if you would agree with me or not. I know I'm a Jackie fan,
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah,
I
me
I
too.
loved I loved the '90s Howard Stern, but in around 2000 and then going into the satellite years was some of the best radio anyone will ever hear, and you just can't recreate it now. I mean, Artie just changed that show.
So you saying
He,
all these years were the best?
yes, in my
Okay.
opinion, yes.
Yeah.
Because I
Bes
love
before or
Howard.
after Sirius? Which one?
Um, well, when they went to Sirius, it got really, really good
Uh-huh.
because they
It was
started doing
raunchy,
those
right?
roasts. They started doing those roasts,
Uh-huh.
and Bob Levy got involved, and Nick DiPaolo, and all these guys were starting to come in and be part of the show, and it just got so funny. And it was very raunchy at first. Like they're like, "Oh, we could swear," and just like every other word was fucking.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
guys, relax. Yeah, we get it.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard
But
curse
I
words
mean,
before.
I would say that the couple of years when they were still on terrestrial and they were talking about leaving terrestrial and going to satellite, up until the few years after they went on satellite, where I think were peak
That
Howard
was the
Stern. It
best.
was just
Okay.
the show was insane.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I know that
Jackie was
John
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
no, Jackie's great, but very different than Artie, obviously, brought a very different element to the show.
yeah. Yeah. There's people that will battle. It's either Billy West in that time
Yep.
with Jackie and Billy West or Artie. Um,
You know, it's funny you say that because
you go either or.
my wife and I bonded over Opie and Anthony. They were syndicated in Rochester in the afternoons. They're on 2 to
That's like 3 to 7 or something.
Yeah, it was 2 to 5
Oh,
on the alternative station, the Zone 94.1.
okay.
And so I had at that time I'm working at E-Bombs World, and I had a little radio, like an actual physical radio next to me, and I would tune in Opie and Anthony in the afternoons and listen to it. And I remember the day, and my wife was my hairstylist, so I would go in and get my hair cut, and we would just talk about Opie and Anthony and what Jim Norton
And
said
that's
that
how
day or
you guys
whatever.
met?
Well, we met playing in a band together, but then she was my hairstylist, so I saw her
Well,
pretty
that's how you
regularly.
get to, okay. I get you probably get your hair cut like once a week to go in and, talk your good
Right. I mean, it was literally 20 yards from my apartment was her salon. So I would just
you would
fall
go
out of
over and
bed,
court her. That's what you would do.
walk over and get yeah. But I remember the day that they took O&A off the air, she texted me. We had never texted each other before. She texted me, she's like, "What happened? Where's Opie and Anthony?" Like that was like a big thing for us. And she lived downstate. She went to college downstate in New York. And so she was a huge fan of Howard Stern during the Billy West era.
Oh,
And
wow.
she would tell me stories about like she would miss class because they were just on a roll and she'd be sitting in her car and like, "Oh, I'm not going to the class because I'm listening to
Wow.
this." And we didn't have the Billy West era in Rochester. He didn't come here until 94.
Okay.
So we didn't really, I mean, I listened to him as soon as he got to Rochester, but I didn't know that era of Howard Stern. So I can't judge that. I can only judge Jackie in the 90s versus Artie in the 2000s.
Understood, understood. Guys, I first of all, I want to thank the great Mr. Carl Hamburger. Carl, still such a huge fan, and not only to find out, getting to know you that you're a great guy too. That just adds to it. Like I was a fan of, like, say, somebody like Henry Rollins and wanted him to come on the show. Came on, he was a douche.
Yeah.
So it's like you like the guy's work, but it takes something away. But when you find someone like yourself who, look, if it's funny, it's funny. You don't care if someone's ripping on you.
Right.
It's just
Well,
you have a
Casey, this is what I've been saying since the beginning, and it's a roast.
yeah.
I am a huge fan of roast comedy, so I don't mind if someone's scoring on me. I'm just glad they're scoring. That's great. Just
Yeah.
the more laughter, the better. In fact, my band, the Isotopes, one of the things we do is we don't talk on stage. We have pre-recorded announcements that we play between songs, and our announcer, the Isotopes announcer, just shits on everything. He shits on the band that opened for us. He shits on the venue. He shits on the audience. Like I've been doing this for a long time where I just treat everything like a roast. And so our podcast is no different. It's not personal. I'm not mad at people. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
just like, even when Stuttering John was threatening lawsuits and saying he was going to have my legs broken by goons and stuff, I'm not mad at him. He's
Right.
a goofball. What are you going to
Yeah,
do?
yeah, yeah. It's some of it is just such nonsense that it really, it's even funnier when you get that reaction.
Yes.
So I got to remind myself of that. When I hear stuff that people are just trying to piss me off, but it doesn't work because I don't give a fuck. I'm
Right.
like you, man. If it's funny, it's funny. Like anyway, let's let you go do your show. Please tell everyone anything that you want to let them know where you're going to be. You got a show at 10. What else is going on in Carl's world?
Yeah, thanks. So, Who Are These Podcasts is my main show, my main project, whoarethese.com. You can find it wherever you listen to podcasts. But I also do The Creep Off, and The Creep Off is a true crime show for guys. It's the only one out there because true crime, it's for girls. Girls like true crime stuff. But what The Creep Off is, my buddy Vinny Paulino and I, every Monday at 1:00 on the Creep Off YouTube channel, we have a contest. And we have to figure out who the biggest creep is of a certain category. So coming up this Monday, it's May Day. It's May 1st. So we got to find the biggest creep that did crazy shit on May 1st sometime in history. We've done this with like
Interesting.
Easter and Thanksgiving, and it's like you find these horrific things where a guy murders his entire family and burns the house down on Thanksgiving Day. And so like we will present who we think is the biggest creep in whatever category.
So it's a family show.
And and it's not a family show at all. It's brutal.
I'm kidding.
And no, I know you're joking. So Vinny and I will go back and forth. We'll research who we think the biggest creep is, and then people go online and they vote who won the episode.
Nice.
And we play to 5. So as soon as someone gets to 5 wins, the other person has to spin the wheel of consequences. And the wheel of
Nice.
consequences is this thing where we have to actually go do shit that we do not want to do. So one of the things that I have to do is drive to Gary, Indiana, which I do not want to do. And I have to go to church, which is not something I normally do.
I'll give
So
you
that's
on that.
another
I'm glad that you
consequence.
got to go to church. Good.
Yeah,
You
I
might-
know.
you
It'll be
might
fun.
learn
It'll be
something.
fun. I might learn something for sure. Well, my buddy Vinny had a consequence. He found this guy who wrote a book about making cocktails with semen.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's crazy. And so his consequence was he had to order the book and then be seen in public reading it. So we were just in Philadelphia at the live
Not
show
the
we just
place to
did.
do it.
Oh my God. So he's sitting at the airport in Philadelphia, just in a lounge chair in
Oh,
a
that's
busy
great.
hallway, just reading this book. And another buddy of ours is filming it. And people walk by like, oh, they're like talking to the front, like, what is it? They all think he's a creep. And he's like sitting there smiling with this
That's
book. So anyway, it's fun stuff like that. That's the creep. And then the other thing I do is Who Are These Socials? And that's the show I do with my buddy Blind Mike, Thursdays at 6 on the Who Are These Podcasts YouTube channel. It's also its own podcast, as is the Creep Off. Who Are These Socials? And Mike and I just break down what's going on in social media, and it's fascinating because I'm not a big fan of social media. I don't even like to be on it.
Yeah.
But if you go on like TikTok, every hot chick has Tourette's, or they have multiple personalities now. Like the things people do for attention is getting insane,
Yeah.
and it's destroying our world, in my opinion. But I like to point and laugh, so it works out for me.
I'm with you, Carl. There's so many things I want to ask you, but I don't want to keep up your time. I've kept you for an hour. I want to thank everybody in the chat, everybody who came in to hang out with us. I'm sorry I didn't get to you guys, but please, guys, and it helps me a lot because I need the subscribers and I need the time. I'm getting there, Carl. These great people here, they got behind me and they're getting it. Hey, Siobhan, Cindy Lou Who, great people. I love you guys, and I'll be back on Monday. Carl, I want to thank you again, and have a great show tonight. And I will be in touch. You're the best, buddy.
Dude, I'll do it again, man. If you got more things to talk about, I always enjoy talking to you, Casey.
I would love to. I would love to have you back because I want to talk to you about this whole team. People teaming up in the podcast. It's like people are on teams and they're fighting with each other. And I even saw it was on that one that you were talking about with the Kevin Brennan that Chad was playing his podcast, and I think someone else was playing Chad's podcast. So you got to explain all this shit to me because I'm new and I'm learning all of it. But we'll
Sounds
get
good,
it.
buddy. Sounds
Thank
good.
you, Carl. Thank you.
Thanks, Casey.
Everybody in chat. I'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Carl.